I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grow Your Business podcast. This week, I have been writing busily. I'm writing my next book, which is certainly a labour of love, but also lots of other labour of pain, as labour, the word would indicate. And one of the things that I was doing as I was researching a particular part of the book was I was coming across the fantastic Brene Brown, Dr. Brene Brown, who has helped us understand so much. And I was looking at this particular thing she calls clear is kind. And I just wanted to share with you in this podcast, when we look at growing our businesses, particularly with the teams that we have, and when we're starting to scale, what is it and how can clear as kind really help us and be a bit of a beacon and guide us into better practices, better mindsets, and better management in terms of what we do. And here are the top 5 things that I learned from that. Now, this is not a specifically Brene Brown saying. She didn't invent it. I've seen that saying other places, but she talks about that, and there's some really great lessons around clear is kind. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, the lessons around Brene that I really learned, is that vulnerability is really a strength. In the past, it was often seen as a weakness, and that is not the case according to a lot of the research that she has done, and that is now also being talked about by many other global thought leaders. It's really, rather than a weakness, it's really a measure of courage. And the clearer we are in terms of our communication, particularly when it comes to showing our vulnerability and honest, the deeper connection as business leaders and owners we are going to have with people. Whether those people are employees or our executive team, our suppliers, our clients, all of the above in terms of doing that. So what do we mean about sharing that vulnerability, as simple as that might sound? Well, vulnerability, when I look at certain posts, isn't about telling people everything about you. It's not about all your deep, dark secrets. As Renee talks about, it's not being at a salon or a bikini place around your wax. That's not the detail we're talking about. It's really about learning to express feelings. And one of the ways that I've implemented in terms of vulnerability and what that means is also when we run our family meeting weekly, is to say to my husband and to the kids, we have an opening and a closing, one word of how you're feeling right at the beginning. It doesn't always need to be a positive word, but it's really learning to tap into the feelings. And really, when you start to express your feelings, you start to become a lot more vulnerable in terms of what you need to do. And as a leader, one of the important things is that it starts with you. So you start off actually sharing something that you feel really vulnerable about. So, for example, I met with somebody that I'm looking at partnering with around some retreats that are coming up. And there's a third person that will also be potentially coming in to help us run certain different types of retreats. And I hadn't met this particular person before, and it was a hour's call on Zoom where we were really looking at how could I get to know him better and vice versa. And so in my introduction, I wanted to just not say, this is what I've done, this is where I've worked. I wanted to, show some of that vulnerability. So I shared with him some stories around my childhood. I also went deep and shared some stories around some of the abuse that I had experienced as a child. Not to say here is all my vulnerability, but related it to that, it takes me a while to trust people. So I will need to get to know him better and make sure that that trust is there. I also talked about some of the failings I'd had in businesses. So whatever it is, we want to make sure that it's connected to the message and your brand and who you are. But vulnerability is a really, really key lesson to talk about. The second thing that I've really learned from Dr. Brene Brown's work is setting clear boundaries. Now, I've spoken about a similar topic in other podcasts, but this one really, when we look at Brene and what she teaches us, she really teaches us about how we can really create or set, but also respect the boundaries, because if we don't respect our boundaries, nobody else around us ever will. So communicating really clearly about your boundaries is a real act of kindness to yourself and interestingly enough, also to the people around you. And I wanted to share an experience with you that when I first started off in business, I was working with a client, and his actual name was Peter, which is generic enough for me to use. And Peter would ring me on a Saturday afternoon. And I had often at that particular time was just finishing my groceries. And I would put that down going, oh my God, this is Peter, he's rung me. And we would then have a conversation that went from, say, half an hour to 45 minutes. And I felt really good. This was a new client that trusted me. They were working on the weekend and they wanted to run something by me. The next Saturday, Peter rang me again, and the one after, he rang me again. By the time he rang me for the third time, I was starting to feel a bit resentful. And I thought that, okay, if he does this again, the next Saturday, I'm going to raise it with him. Lo and behold, he rings me the next Saturday and he says, hey, Shivani, how are you? Same time, same day. The week after. And I said, look, Peter, I just wanted to let you know, I don't actually work Saturdays. I do a Monday to Friday schedule. And he was silent. And he said, I didn't know. I just thought that when you answer the phone that you were working on Saturdays as well. You should have let me know that weeks ago. I felt like a complete idiot because here I was thinking I was doing a great thing. I had just started off in business. I was helping my client and feeling the resentful that was really starting to build over the last 4 weeks. And he just assumed that I was also working. So I hadn't set clear boundaries. I hadn't respected in terms of what days I was working. So after that, I got better. And, you know, when people make appointments in my Calendly, they can't do that on a Saturday and Sunday. They can only do that Monday to Friday. So clear is kind. Getting clear about how you're going to do that and raise that is so important. The next thing that I've really learned in some of the research for my book, looking at some of Brene Brown's work, is how when you are clear, it actually builds trust. So when you're really clear about your communication, it really becomes that foundation of trust. And it's so important to trust in building those strong relationships, as we know, and your clear communication helps you maintain that and do that. And so I wanted to share that with you, that I had an experience where I was renovating a house that we were going to live in, and we wanted this to become our new home. And the builder was starting to get really impatient because he was starting to run out of tradespeople that were reporting and working for him to finish off our home, but also he was working on a number of other projects. And so as he got a bit overwhelmed with managing all the different projects, he was starting to run behind on ours, and we had a lease where we were renting a place to be able to finish that lease and with plenty of time to be able to move into our new home. So I just had to sit Michael down, who was our builder at the time, and I just said, look, Michael, I so understand that you're under so much pressure. It's getting difficult to get trades, and I know that you're managing a bunch of things, but this is the situation I'm in. And if I'm in that, that's going to cost me quite a bit of money to move again, or to renew the lease, which I can't just do for a number of weeks while you finish. I would have to probably take out another minimum 6 months lease. And that financially for me is really, really terrible. So I just need to have very open communication. Don't promise me stuff you're not going to be able to deliver, but I need almost weekly, if not every couple of days, to talk to you and for you to give me a bit of an update. Clarity builds trust. And he said to me, Shivani, I'm so glad that you've had the courage to have this conversation, because I didn't have the courage to have this conversation. And so as a result of that, we were able to work together, and we were only a couple of weeks out, but initially it looked like that we could have been a couple of months out, and that would not have worked. And we were able to extend our lease by a couple of weeks. The second to last thing I want to speak about in this podcast around clear is kind is embracing imperfection. I know the Japanese have some beautiful theories and words, and part of the art, if they break a bowl, is to not fix it or throw it away, is just to display it and talk about the art of imperfection. And Brene Brown talks about and encourages us as leaders and founders and owners to embrace the imperfections and be really authentic. And I was thinking about how to put this into my book. And the example that I came up with that I wanted to share with you is the fact that I was running a wellness business, and I found that I was not as well. I was spending less and less time on my wellness and spending more and more time scaling and running a business and helping other people's wellness, which is quite ironic in itself. And so I decided to talk about the fact that I was imperfect in this area with my team at a particular management meeting. And they were really a bit shocked, like you could see that from their body language, that here I was talking about not being well running a wellness business. And then another manager spoke up, then another manager spoke up. And then before we knew it, we had this on the Moses camaraderie talking about how to embrace imperfection in a real life example. And then we decided that we would hold each other accountable in a peer buddy system so that we could really help manage our own wellness as well as managing other people's. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that engaging in difficult conversations, which most of us avoid. I know I don't love them, but it is such an art and such a skill to learn. The more you practice it, the better that you get at it, like most skills. But it's so important to address challenging topics. And when we don't, this is where some of our really key people are getting really upset and pissed off and are leaving our businesses. So really, when it comes to clear as kind, we want to also have the difficult conversations. We want to be able to give people feedback, learn how to do that, because it's such an important part of being a great business leader and owner. I hope you got one tip out of it that will help you really hone in the message in clear is kind. And I look forward to speaking to you next time. Any time that you may wish to reach out, please do on askshivani.com. If you've got any other great guests that you think would be fantastic on it, please let us know. And we would love to continue to help you in your business growth journey for you both professionally and personally. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.